there's some kind of people that follow the fire trucks around. They said, well, you had a fire up here, and we want to know, can we repair from the fire, do repairs? And I said, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? He said, well, you know, you better come up. You're ready to say, St. Nick, there's a fire.
A massive fire ripped through the set of a major Hollywood movie in New York City last night, killing a firefighter and badly burning 2 others.
The movie was Motherless Brooklyn, a detective story set in the 1950s. The Harlem building used for filming belonged to Vincent Lampkin. A year later, Lampkin is still making sense of the fire.
So I saw the smoke coming out, and I was shocked that it was really something wrong, like a serious incident. I said, how could it be with all these movie people and everything?
The building's landlord isn't the only one with unanswered questions about the fire. It's still a mystery how it started and who's to blame for the devastation and firefighters' death. Was it a broken boiler or a careless movie crew? Until 2012, 773 St. Nicholas Avenue was the site of a beloved jazz bar called St. Nick's Pub. Around 5 months before the fire, the movie's location scouts reached out to Lampkin about renting the building.
So they rebuilt the bar completely, and they made it into an antique, old-fashioned movie scene, which is like 50s or 40s for their timeline.
Lampkin gave the film crew access to the bar in the basement, as well as a first-floor apartment from February to March 2018. He was paid $35,000. On March 22nd, the last day of filming, the bar was packed.
It was the big final wrap-up, and there was a lot of extras and a lot of beautiful, people in the movie.
A few hours after Lampkin left the set, the movie's special effects coordinator called 911 to report a fire. The police log shows that by 6:11 a.m. the next morning, the fire was under control. But the building's 4 tenants had lost their home, and firefighter Michael R. Davidson was dead. A structural engineer present after the fire recalled the destruction.
I had to go in first to make sure that the area was safe. There was just debris all over. The cellar was burnt to a crisp, for lack of a better term. So you couldn't have saved the building. The things that were damaged by the fire was the brick, because it was under severe heat, so all the mortar basically burnt out. And so when we went to demolish the front of the building, it just basically turned to powder, which was a pretty dangerous scenario. It was just so hectic. That's what I remember most. We were going at 100 miles an hour.
The movie's director, Edward Norton, was the first to offer an explanation for the fire. Norton said via Instagram that the fire had started in the cellar below the basement, where the building's boiler was located. 2 months later, the fire department issued a statement also suggesting the boiler sparked the blaze. But in December, one of the department's own investigators, Fire Marshal Scott Specht, filed a claim saying the movie company caused the fire. Specht, who declined to be interviewed, inspected the site of the fire for over a month.
Day in and day out, digging through the rubble, brick by brick, until he got to the boiler, until the area was cleared.
Specht said his supervisors pressured him to blame the boiler for reasons he still doesn't understand.
Initially, Specht, after being up for 36 hours, said, okay, it's the boiler. He went home, got a full night's rest, he woke up. He had a moral dilemma. And he called them back and said, I'm not signing off on that. And they said, fine, you're off the case. Whatever their agenda is to deflect any scrutiny away from the movie production company, you'd have to ask them about. But it's disgusting and it's deplorable.
In the years before the fire, the Department of Buildings issued multiple violations related to the boiler. Lampkin insisted that the boiler was in good condition before the fire.
I wouldn't say brand new, but relatively new. Had been fixed sometime earlier that year, like 6 months before.
The movie crew originally told 911 there were electronics on fire in the basement. That's not the way a boiler fire is usually described, said expert Jim Bullock.
I never heard of a boiler fire called electrical fire. Like I said, they don't usually say electrical fire. They would say boiler fire because the smoke is heavy, black, thick smoke is coming out of the boiler,
The film crew had also set up wiring throughout the building, which Specht considered a hazard.
The movie production company made structural changes to this building, meaning they had to cut holes in areas so cables and wires could be run throughout the building.
There were a lot of them. They ran down both sides of the street, both sides of the building, in through the front, out the back. It was pretty extensive.
and the basement sprinklers were found to be off at the time of the fire. Speck's theory is that the movie crew disabled the sprinklers because of the lights on set.
Movie lights give off a lot of heat. If it was close to a sprinkler head, it would give it off. The sprinkler head generally would go off at 165 degrees.
This sprinkler system in the basement was shut off. Who had access to the basement? The movie production company and its crew.
Lampkin refused to comment on the state of the sprinklers. Specht has been denied overtime since speaking out about the fire and has alleged the department is retaliating against him.
Basically, they have him doing little to nothing. He comes, he signs in, and he leaves at the end of his tour. It's meant to demoralize.
The fire department would not discuss Specht's employment or the results of his investigation. The firefighter's widow and a former tenant are suing both Lampkin and the movie company, Class 5 Productions. Class 5 has responded to the lawsuits but declined to comment for this report. The movie, Motherless Brooklyn, will be released on November 1st, 2019. In the meantime, Lampkin hopes to rebuild the bar and apartments at 773 St. Nicholas Avenue.
I'm hoping so much that we do everything we can to have a positive, at least as much as positive outcome from this disaster. And we need to try to build a new construction here.